It says here that the new Tiger 900 Rally Pro blends class-leading off-road capability with long-range comfort, road handling and style. Class-leading. We'll be the judge of that. When they launched this bike, it sort of snuck under the radar. It was a little update to the Tiger 900, but then when you looked at it, it got a whole heap more power, and yeah, they've created something that's even more than that. It's got a real bark, a real growl to it that the Tiger hasn't had before. I mean, yeah, excuse the horrendous Tiger puns there, but that engine is, yeah, better than it's ever been. I really enjoy that. The minute I got on this thing, that surprised me. I was like, oh. Triumph, I'm taking the mickey out of them a bit about their marketing spiel about having the class-leading off-road bike, but it's actually such a good road bike. And Ducati sort of did this a bit with their Desert X. They made this big song and dance about Antoine Mayer around a motocross track and doing whips. But the best thing about the Desert X was how good it was to ride on the road and still go really well off-road. And so far this Tiger has really impressed me on the road. The suspension feels really firm, really taut, quite a roady setup, which I'm intrigued to see how well that translates once we get in the dirt. It's got such a nice feel in the corners. You can really throw it about, really be aggressive with it, and it doesn't waddle or wobble. It just seems to settle really quickly. So they've done a really good job with that. Getting distracted by the engine every 3 seconds now. Initially it feels quite a big bike, in the same way that actually that the Desert X does. When you first sit on it, it feels like there's a lot of bike around you. It feels quite top heavy. You think, oh yeah, but once you're rolling on the road, that's not a problem. It doesn't feel overweight. It doesn't feel like you're having to muscle it around. It feels quite good fun then. Look at the size of that lorry. Thank you, mate. He's a monster. Prime time there to talk about the brakes. The brakes are phenomenal. One finger and it's got the forks creaking and the whole thing buried on the front tyre. The front brake is amazingly good on the road. So it feels like you could take one of those calipers off and it would still have more than enough braking power. This Triumph starts at 14,495 grand basically. You do get quite a lot of kit for that. It's got heated grips, it's got heated seat. That's a manufacturer based in the UK. Knowing what's important to UK riders. That stuff is standard. Good quality Showa suspension, decent amount of travel. It's got a lot of big ticks going on the spec sheet, that's for sure. Adjustable screen, nice simple one, not the snazziest, not the fanciest mechanism, but one hand is up, is down. I quite like that. It's definitely miles better than the Africa Twin one that you have to wiggle up one side at a time. Very wide bars, big spacious cockpit, so for a bigger rider I think this would be quite good. But they have still managed to get a sensible seat height even with the long travel suspension. It's no Yamaha Virago. You're going to be stretching, but yeah, seat height is pretty manageable for average height people, I'm going to say. I'm pretty decidedly average at 5'8", and it should be no surprise that the Tiger's amazing on the road, because that's always been Triumph's thing. Throughout the years they've always managed to do a really good chassis, from Daytona, the early underpowered Daytona 600s that, while all the other Supersport bikes were way quicker, Daytona just handled nicely, through to the original Tiger 800, which was a phenomenal fast road bike for bumpy roads. They've kept that same feeling. A big 21-inch front wheel, but you can kind of feel what it's doing, you trust it. Doesn't feel soggy or vague, everything feels taut and kind of racy on the road. Good job. But that wasn't what I started out this video wanting to test, was it? I wanted to test this whole claim of class-leading off-road performance. Easy to take a jibe at them for putting that down, but also perfect excuse to go and do massive skids in muddy puddles. We're running on the original equipment, Bridgestone A41s at the moment. I'm going to go and sling some AX41 off-roady tyres on, see what trouble I can get into. The road riding, big tick. Tiger 900 is awesome. I really enjoyed it. The engine's kind of a bit of a highlight. Sounds amazing and has a really good sort of, yeah, mid-range pull that makes it exciting. And chassis-wise, yeah, couldn't fault it. Absolutely loved it. It does have a really good amount of feel from the front tyre, which with a 21-inch front wheel bike isn't the easiest thing to achieve. So, tick. They should have led with that. It's really good on the road. Now though, time to put the off-road claims to the test. We've chucked a set of sort of 60/40 off-road tyres on it. I'm going to take it up and down my favourite trail, give it a send, jump in some puddles and see what we make of it. Oh, that's better. Now we got some off-road tyres fitted. You can get out for a little bit of a play. Oh, it's greasy today. I've not gone for the gnarliest off-road tyre I could find. A sort of 60/40 tyre on it, but that's about right. You wouldn't want to wreck what's good about this on the road. Oh, look at that horrible diagonal route waiting to catch you out. Got a decent amount of usable grunt in the engine. I've got it in off-road pro mode. Still got that little slight woolly feel to the throttle. Just there at low revs when you want a bit of bark and a bit of fire. It's like it's backed off a little bit. What I need now, a little potassium top up. I know what you're thinking, and yes, there is a banana in my pocket. Never go adventuring unprepared. I'm going to waste the internet now by making you watch me eat a banana. The bars feel much more natural when you're standing than they do when you're sat down. Wow, swamp. Good grippy pegs. A little bit between the legs, the frame sort of feels quite wide, pushing your ankles, and then there's not much else to clamp on. There's like a big gap. That's a little bit of an adventure bike trait, but a few of them have got that right, but yeah, not perfect on this one. That front brake that was insanely powerful on the road yesterday, impressively, has got really good feel as well. It's not got a ridiculous amount of bite, and provided you're sensible and only use one finger on it, it's actually really good off-road. Best in class. I'm not sure I'd give it that. Brilliantly competent, definitely. Good little off-road bike. And amazing for its size.
The Angry Chicken has come a very long way in the 10+ years since that first Tiger 800 hit the streets. It's got faster, it's got more capable on-road, more capable off-road, and it's evolved into a fantastic all-round adventure bike. Now, I started this video off with a little taunt about Triumph's PR blurb saying it is the class-leading off-road performer. It just made me chuckle a bit because I don't want to pick on Triumph, but they've got a habit of throwing these little digs at other manufacturers into their marketing stuff. And the reason it makes me chuckle is because they just don't need to. This isn't the best multi-cylinder off-road adventure bike. I'm sorry, it just isn't. There are a few others that set their camps out more firmly into the off-road camp and sacrifice road performance in the process. This isn't the best on-road multi-cylinder adventure bike, but it is one of the best balances in this kind of middleweight adventure bike category. Its road performance is really, really good. That wasn't spoilt by fitting a more aggressive tyre. And then off-road, it's supremely capable. It chomped up everything on the trail. It did a really good job of hiding its weight once it was rolling and never ever made me feel uncomfortable or like it wasn't happy on the terrain I hit today. That's a brilliant thing. They don't need to be poking fun and saying we're the best at this, that and the other and making silly claims. They built the Tiger 800, then they built the Tiger 900. They're great bikes in their own right, and that's their own kind of legacy to play off. Now, I did find a few little chinks in the armour of the 900 today that I didn't fully fall in love with. Number one, physical size and weight when moving it around at slow speed. It's not the most difficult bike to manoeuvre in those situations, but it's not the easiest. I definitely found when I was stationary with the foot on the ground, the weight and physical stature of the bike made it a little bit harder to move around than, for example, the KTM 890 or even the base model Tenere. Second, and probably the only thing that nibbled away at my enjoyment of riding the Triumph today, was the connection with the throttle. Now, this isn't a purely Triumph thing. There are lots of manufacturers that I find the same thing with, and manufacturers now have so many pressures on what they do with the fuel and the throttle of the bike, because they've got to get through emissions regulations, they've got to keep the engines working for 100,000 miles, they've got to protect the drivetrain. There's so many other inputs into that, but it doesn't stop the fact that I didn't always feel like that throttle was giving me what I'd asked for. And of course it wasn't. It's an electronic throttle, that's their job. But the fact that I noticed it, that was something I found annoying today. Again, it's a problem shared by the KTM 890, and it's something they've improved, but you still do notice at certain times, you can't quite judge what you're going to get out of the throttle. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go back and ride. This is where I sound like a grumpy old man. Go back and ride a really well carbureted bike. A bike with a really good set of carburetors that feels crisp and clean all the way through. And you'll see what I mean. When you open the throttle, if you open it too hard, you hear the engine balk, you hear the engine bog down. You get what you've asked for. Whether the engine likes it or not is a different matter. With these modern ride-by-wire bikes, they're protecting the engine from that, they're protecting you from that, and the ones that do it really well, you don't notice. The ones that do it not quite perfect, you do feel. And I found when I was trying to hop holes at slow speed, that very bottom end, it felt like the throttle wasn't attached. That was my only bugbear that annoyed me more than once on the trail. Outside of that, everything about the Triumph pleasantly surprised me. I found I could put it where I want. I found I had so much trust in the front wheel on some awful diagonal rocks today. The front brake is pure witchcraft. Super powerful on the road, but enough feel and feedback to trail it using one finger down a greasy rock in the mud. I don't quite know how they've done that, but top marks for doing so. Again, the high-spec Showa suspension did a really, really good job on the trail today. Initially, I had some weird kind of things going on with it where it felt like it was topping out the rear shock a lot and I couldn't quite work out what it was doing. Always check these suspension settings in the manual, Chris. Went back and checked and the preload was wound up to absolute maximum. I suspect they did that in advance of me hitting some jumps on it to try and protect the bike when I was jumping it, so fair play, but I actually wound it back off to the sort of middle of the road setting. It still coped really well with the jumps and then was much, much nicer when I was charging down the trail. Just goes to show that unlike 20 years ago where your clickers on your suspension did 2/10 of bugger all, on these modern things you can actually make quite a big difference by changing the suspension clickers, so pay attention to what's there, and if there's something you don't like, go ahead and fiddle with it. After 2 full days of blasting this Triumph round on my favourite roads and some of my favourite trails, I've really, really, really enjoyed it in a bigger way than I ever expected. I know the Tiger 900 has always been a good bike. This latest evolution has just moved the game on a little bit further, and the way the engine sounds and feels, for me, is something that is massive smile, makes me want to go out and buy it. Now, would I buy one as my own adventure bike? It's a tricky question, that. It is a phenomenal bit of kit, and what I think it does probably better than anything else out there, I think only the Ducati is maybe on a par with it, is balances really good off-road performance with really good road performance and never feels like it's too much out of its depth in either. That for me is a really, really big hit. Something that BMW GS did really well for years, and in this middleweight, sort of middleweight twin and triple cylinder class, I think this is one of the best. Personally, my heart lies a little bit more in the off-road world when it comes to multi-cylinder adventure bikes. If I was gonna do the nice split between on and off-road thing, I'd end up buying one of the full-size large capacity bikes, and for what I actually do, I'd lean more towards Yamaha Tenere, KTM 890, even Norden 901. that end of the spectrum. I kind of like that more dirt bikey feel and the more off-road bias, and I'm prepared to take the handicap that gives you on the tarmac. So there we have it. If you want a straight down the middle balance in off-road and on-road riding on your middleweight adventure bike, I don't think you'll go far wrong with the Tiger 900 Rally Pro. Looks cool, looks slightly like an angry chicken, rides incredible wherever you put it. Hell of a bike.